Good morning, Kahal Kadosh, Beruchim Abayim to everybody. Today, Wednesday, the 23rd of Kislev, 5781, December 9th, 2020. Today's class is dedicated Le'ilui Nishmat, my dear uncle, Shmuel ben Esther, Alav Shalom, that today is the day of his Askara. Most special person, that Baruch Hashem, we knew him well, and we only have good and great memories of his being, of his person, and Be'ezat Hashem, Miratzon, that to the words of Torah, his neshama will have an aliyah in Gan Eden, amen. A person who loved Yiddishkeit, a person who loved Hashem, and a person who always makes sure to give people of Mr. Edmond Safra, Alav Shalom ben Esther, and God willing, we will be dedicating the shiur tomorrow also in the loving memory, but today we'll discuss the continuation of the celebration of Hanukkah. So, Baruch Hashem, there is so much information that I'd like to share with the Kahal Kadosh, but I'll do my best, hopefully not to be repetitive, and if I am, I apologize in advance. Based on the Gemara of Masechet Shabbat, the Knesset David writes clearly, and it says, Hakpada Mele'ah, a person that becomes meticulous on the observance of the lighting the Hanukkah Kadat V'Chahalacha, in the proper way, between the halachic parameters, timely manner, staying the 30 minutes, praising Hashem, singing, saying all the prayers of Hanukkah at the moment of candle lighting, and lighting with olive oil, and the beautiful things that we have been discussing for the past day or two. Bekoha limnoa besurot tovot. It has the power, limnoa besurot raot. I wanted to say good, Baruch Hashem, it came the right way. It says it has the power to nullify or to avoid, rather, becoming aware of unfortunate news, ulbatel kol gezerah kasha, and to nullify any negative decree. And the question is, why? Why the light of Hanukkah has so much power that is able to literally create a block in negativity and nullify negative decrees? I believe the answer is as follows. The entire concept of the light of Hanukkah, it's in a sense, Hashem's revelation to I'm back. Technology, with the press of a button, we can be on the other side of the room. And yet, we see that additionally, we eat fried things, dairy items, we don't eulogize, we don't visit the cemetery, we don't fast, and yet, we also play with the sevivon. We play with the spin top. or dreidel, the way people call it today. Let's fast forward. Celebration of Purim, coming up in a few months from now, Be'ezat Hashem. We have the Megillah, Seudat Purim, Mishloach Manot, Matanot Le'evyonim, and the Gragger, the Ra'ashan. The Gragger is the toy for Purim, and the Sebibon is the toy for Hanukkah. We know the Sebibon element, it's based on the decree that the Greeks had made against Jewish people, but specifically Jewish children, not to be able to learn Torah, but yet they sacrificed their lives and they learned Torah, but they also had games set up in the event the Greeks will come and bother them. They were just playing. But there is nothing simple about this dreidel or the sebibon. Actually, it's a very deep Kabbalistic concept involved with this game. What does it mean? The Zohar Kadosh explains that in Judaism there are an interesting concept known as It'oreruta de le'ela, It'oreruta de letata. In English that means It'oreruta de le'ela means the spiritual awakening, so to speak, from the heavens. It'oreruta de letata means the spiritual awakening from below, from the planet Earth. In Hanukkah, we play with the sebibon that spin from the top, because this is God's revelation in an open fashion to the eyes of the world. Literally, that a handful of yeshiva students or younger man's avrechim from the Kollel, they were the one who defeated the Greeks. The Jewish people didn't have an army. They weren't even allowed to have an army. And even so, we know very well that from a Torah perspective, who is the army of Israel? The Talmidei Hachamim, the students of the Torah. So therefore, they were a handful. They weren't thousands. They started with less than 10 and maybe grew to 150, 200 the way it's written. That was the amount of the soldiers who defeated the Greek Empire. So obviously, as we say in Al Nisim, Masarta Giborim biyad halashim, you deliver the mighty in the hands of the weak. Berabim miyad me'atim, and the many in the hands of the few. Bezedim biyad oske toratecha, and the intentional sinners were delivered in the hands of those who lived and learned the Torah. So in Hanukkah, we have a godly revelation that even the spin top hints to it. And that's why in the version of the Sebibon, you have two versions. The Israeli version, Nes Gadol Haya Po, and outside of Israel version, Nes Gadol Haya Sham. A great miracle happened there. Means we are outside of Israel, we're talking about Israel. But our rabbis highlight that even the toy as the Sebivon, if you look at these four letters, Nes Gadol Haya Sham, it gives you the magic number 358, which is the same numerical value of the word Mashiach. Mashiach 358, Nes Gadol Haya Sham Rashi Tevot, also comes out to the 358. So Purim, completely the opposite. Purim, the threat came, and Bnei Israel needed to wage a war, and they needed to defend themselves, and they needed to do teshuvah. In other words, Hashem was in the miracle of Purim, but hidden behind the mask. And that's the reason why people dress up in honor of Purim. Hashem was behind the mask. Hashem was manipulating Esther, Mordechai, Haman, Ahashverosh, Vashti, Harbona, and that's the reason why in the Purim celebration we play with the Ra'ashan from the Gragger, and we hold it from the bottom because that bottom handle is connected to the earth, and the top of the Sevivon or dreidel is connected to Shamayim. And now we are able to understand why, according to many opinions, the celebration of Hanukkah will never cease to be celebrated by Am Israel, because Hanukkah, in a way, it's a godly revelation to the world. Not only that, if we can add one more concept, that when you look at the Hanukkah, how many candles of Hanukkah do we light all together? Let's do the numbers. 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4, etc. You need to come out to the number 36. Now, plus the shamash. The shamash, 8 nights, 8 additional candles. I am not referring to the extra candles that many families of the community have to light in honor of Hanukkah as a token of gratitude to Hashem for their survival post the Inquisitions in Spain, 1492, etc. Many people have this community connected mostly to the Syrian community, and those families that have this, how do I call this? Not tradition, but this concept of my father lead it, my grandfather lead it, my great-grandfather, all the way till the moment that they left Spain and were welcomed warmly by the community in Aram Sova, in Aleppo, or in Damascus, in Damascus, which we need to know that these communities are not new. They date all the time from the time of David HaMelech alav shalom. Let's continue. Now, so we have number 36. What is the 36 magic number when it comes to the Hanukkah? Yes, we know the Talmud in Masechet Shabbat tells us the argument perhaps between Bet Shammai and Bet Hillel. Each one gives a different opinion of how many candles to light each night. Shammai says Hanukkah is about the miracle, so we need to start from the miracle, meaning to say 8 candles. Second night, 7. Third night, 6. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hillel says no. The first day wasn't really a miracle because we had oil for the first day. And the second day was closer to a miracle until we came to the final day. So therefore he says, Mosif veholech, you add and you move on. And Hillel brings a true, powerful and strong reason, Ma'alin bakodesh be'enan moridin. When it comes to godliness and to spirituality, we grow, we elevate ourselves, and we don't go down. And that's why we follow the ruling of Bet Hillel. And that's one of the Rashi Tevot that the Moed Kol Hai brings down. And it says, Hanukkah, Het Nerot, Vehalacha Kevet Hillel, Rashi Tevot, Hanukkah. But that still doesn't answer what's so special about these numbers, 36 plus 8, 44. What message is the celebration of Hanukkah is giving us? So the month that we're finding ourselves, it's called Kislev with a Vav. If we split the word Kis, Lev, Lev is 36, Lamed Vav, and Kis is to cover. What is this referring to? So interesting enough the Bnei Issachar explains that this represents a couple of hidden messages. Number one, in the Torah, 36 times it's written the word or, light. And 36 hours was the light of Hashem shining in a revealed manner, which was from the moment that Adam was created all the way till Mosa'e Shabbat, that he was removed from Gan Eden. So the 36 candles of Hanukkah connects to the 36 times in the Torah the word or, which means light, and the 36 hours that was God's revealed essence in the world until Mosa'e Shabbat, which is the concept of separation of Gan Eden and the planet Earth. The Midrash Pinchas explains a fascinating Hidush, and it says, in the world of Talmud, every candle represents a different volume of the Talmud. Not Mishnayot, but Gemara. How many tractates the Gemara has? 36. So imagine yourself, the first night you light a candle and you have Kavanah, Gemara Berachot. The second night you're going to light 2 candles, you're going to say Shabbat Eruvin. The third night you're going to say Pesachim Shekalim. Then you're going to say, I believe it goes Rosh Hashanah, Yoma, Sukkah, Besat, Ta'anin, Megillah, Moed Katan, Hagigah. Every night we're going to honor one volume of the Talmud. Remember what we learned 2 days ago? What Hanukkah is all about, or even yesterday? Torah Shebe'al Peh, the oral law. The written law is the celebration of Shavuot, but the oral law is the celebration of Hanukkah. That is Gezerat Hachamim. Is one of the 7 mitzvot established by our great sages. So I was thinking last night, we had a beautiful class late in Spanish, and I brought up the question of what's doing with the shamosh. What's going on with the shamosh? And the shamosh element is the concept of understanding what the shamosh does. So the shamosh in some cases can be utilized to ignite a fire for the Hanukkah, because we have halakha that says, "En lanu reshut leishtamesh bahem, ela lir'otam bilbad." I don't have the permission to use it. So if candle number 1 extinguished, I cannot take the fire from candle number 2 to light candle number 1. I must take the fire from the shamosh. That is the technical purpose of the shamosh. Some people light the shamosh in the beginning. Many of us light the shamosh at the end. But if we put this together now in perspective, and we already are saying that Adam Arishon is somehow connected to the celebration of Hanukkah, represented by the 36 hours, I want to see Adam Arishon in Hanukkah. And Baruch Hashem, I don't know how it happened, but we started to think for a moment. If we have 36 candles of Hanukkah, and we have 8 shamash, 1 for each night, that gives me the collective number of 44. 44 in Hebrew is dam, has v'shalom, blood. But if I add 1, because the word has a value of a single digit, from 44, it becomes 45. What is 45? Adam, Aleph, Dalet, Mem. What a hidush we shared yesterday night. To the Spanish crowd, I apologize. I gave that idea to them first because they are late. The shiur starts at 9:15. And Baruch Hashem. So now we understand that even Adam Arishon is connected to the concept of the celebration of Hanukkah. What a hidush from the great tzaddikim. And that's why the Imbre Pinchas writes that when a person finished, the singing and the reading, etc., or even as you sing, look at the Hanukkah. Look at the fire of the Hanukkah. Like we learned many, many weeks ago on the beginning of Bereshit, that looking at the Shabbat candles, it brings a tikkun to the eyes of the person and brings a certain level of kedusha to the person. The Imbre Pinchas writes that the same applies when it comes to looking at the candles of Hanukkah. He calls them orot de kedusha, the light of holiness, the light of godliness. The Kedushat Levi reinforces something fascinating, quoted originally by the name of the great Rabbeinu Batya. Rabbeinu Batya, he writes and it says, Adam, again he uses the Lashon Adam, interesting. Adam shesameach be'et asiyat hamizvah, a person that is happy while the mizvah is being performed. Mekayem mizvat aseh nosefet min haTorah. He's adding, meaning to say, if the mitzvah is the mitzvah of lighting the Hanukkah, now you get a bonus round. What is this bonus round called? Simcha, happiness. But here is the hidush. Umizvah hazo hasheniya. And the second mitzvah of being fulfilled, the concept of doing the mitzvah with happiness and joy, and I'm only saying this because he says it, Hashuba ot yoter min hamizvah she'isku ba. It's far more important than the mitzvah that you were intending to fulfill. And now your question will be, Rabbi, relax. How could it be that a supplement to a mitzvah can become the highlight of the mitzvah? Excellent question. I think the answer is as follows. I'll give you one answer and then we'll bring another source that reinforces this concept. We all remember very well Perashat Kitavo. Perashat Kitavo is the parasha usually read before Rosh Hashanah. Perashat Kitavo contains 98 tohachot, 98 rebukes or warnings to Am Israel concerning the following the Torah and living like Jews. But at the end of the 98, the person may ask, why? Why this happened? The Torah gives us the reason why. And I'm sure you know the answer. But just for my benefit and the benefit of everybody, I'll say it. The Pasuk writes in Perashat Kitavo, Tahat asher lo avadta et Hashem Elokecha v'simcha u'tub levav merov kol be'avadta et oyevecha. This Pasuk meet each other at the end. But the Pasuk that I'm interested in quoting is, due to the fact that we did not serve God with joy and gladness in our heart, we will serve our enemy. This is not a midrash. This is not I heard. This is not some gematria. is a pasuk from the Torah, from Moshe Rabbeinu, from Hashem, Perasha Kitabo. The pasuk says, due to the fact that we did not serve God with joy, now we understand what Rabbeinu Batya says, that if you don't do the mitzvah with joy, maybe the mitzvah didn't reach first base, which we discussed this in the laws of honoring parents or welcoming guests. It's more important the happiness that a person is doing that mitzvah more than what you're giving as a meal or as a gift. But listen to this added explanation from the Devash Lefi. We know that in Hanukkah we say Mizmor Shir Hanukkah Tabayit LeDavid, chapter 30 of the Tehillim. Now I will clarify. We say this chapter after we finish lighting the Hanukkah. That's number one. In Shaharit, before Hashem Melech, according to our tradition, we do not say Mizmor Shir Hanukkah Tabayit LeDavid. We continue Aromimcha Hashem Kidilitani. But according to many in the Syrian world, we say Mizmor Shir Hanukkah Tabayit LeDavid, the way it's written in the Siddur, upon the return of the Sefer Torah back to the Hechal. I'm only throwing this as a freebie for today's class. But if the Levash Lefi says Mizmor Shir Hanukkah Habayit, if you take the first letter of each of these words, I'm going to write it as I'm speaking so we can do it together. Mizmor Mem Hanukkah Het. Mizmor Mehila Shir Shin Hanukkah Habayit Mem Shin Het He Otiyot Simcha. So the opening statement of this pasuk is telling us, you want to know the secret of Hanukkah? Do the mitzvah with joy. Do the mitzvah in a happy way. What a beautiful hidush we come across from the Levash Lefi, which this is something reinforced by the one and only Kedushat Levi, the great Sanegoran Shel Israel, the best attorney for the Jewish people, the great Rabbi Levi Yitzhak of Bardichov, which I'm sure the Kahal Kadosh heard about him, and it says as follows, that when a Yehudi lights the candle of Hanukkah properly, with happiness, with a pleasant and positive attitude, the illumination of the Hanukkah is not limited to the person and his family, but the Hanukkah brings godliness in the entire world. This is what the great Rabbi Yitzhak of Bardichov writes concerning the concept of the celebration of Hanukkah. Additionally, and this comes from many different sources, Divrei Nehemiah, Moadim Zemanim, Rabbi Chaim, Karlstein on Hanukkah, and it says as follows. In chapter 30 of the Tehillim, let's open quickly the book of Tehillim. Now we're going to discuss the topic of healing, Refuah Shelema. Hashem Elokai, Hashem my God, Shiv'ati Elecha, our clamor to you, Vatirpa'eni, and you brought me healings. So all these sources says that when a person recites this verse, which is the third verse of chapter 30 of Tehillim, that we're going to say after lighting the Hanukkah, Be'ezat Hashem tomorrow night, you don't need to say it, but you can do it internally, cry out to Hashem for refuah shelema. And it says, Iz'ak la Hashem. Cry out to the Almighty. How loud? B'mahashavto. Here. From where? Mikirat libo. From the walls of your heart. Sheirapehu. That Hashem sends refuah shelema. And unfortunately, the list of refuah shelema, Haz v'shalom, has been increasing. And I'm sure that we know people. And even if you don't know them by name, just have in your mind, Hashem send me refuah shelema. Hashem send everyone refuah shelema. And it says, Be'aborei barach. What's the beautiful part of this? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu yahish et refuato. God will expedite the healing. Why? Bizchut mizvat hahadlaka. For the merit of lighting the Hanukkah, etc. What a beautiful, beautiful hidush. And I ask you a question. How many years are we celebrating Hanukkah? I'm sure that I'm going to get many different answers based on the age of the person. But how many hidushim we are learning? Stuff that is in front of us. And suddenly Hashem gives us the opportunity and the possibility to be able to find them, number one, reveal them, and share them with the Kahal. I believe that so far, with everything that we have been learning, this alone gives us, Baruch Hashem, the excitement of looking forward to Hanukkah and trying to maximize the 30 minutes that we're going to be standing in front of the Hanukkah. Is going to get even better. Now we're going to discuss protection. So we discuss about prevention of listening to sad news, nullification of negative decrees. We spoke about happiness. We spoke about happiness again. We just finished talking about healing. Now we're going to talk about protection. Everyone needs protection. And that's the reason why when it comes to the night of Hanukkah, there is a powerful tradition which is brought down in many places. Most Sidurim have it. The recitation of chapter 91, Yosef Beseter Elyon. Interesting enough, that chapter is recited, God forbid, whenever there is a mitzvah, a burial. Yosef Beseter Elyon. Why do we say this chapter in that unfortunate situation? Short answer, because this chapter is an antidote for evil spirits. This is a chapter of Tehillim of protection. Interesting enough, and I believe that this is quoted by the Hida, that if you look through this entire chapter 91, that usually we begin with the verse from the previous chapter, Bihi Noam Hashem Elokeinu Alenu, which this is a basic introduction to any mitzvah that a person does, or every time we are about to start praying, what do we say? Bihi Noam Hashem Elokeinu Alenu Ma'aseh Konenu Alenu Ma'aseh Konenu. What's the meaning of this verse? This is the last verse of chapter 90. This is a verse that Moshe Rabbeinu mentioned to the Jewish people when they were involved in the building of the Mishkan, which we know that started right after Sukkot and concluded the 25th day of Kislev. In a record time, they built the Mishkan, but the green light for inauguration was given later for Rosh Chodesh Nisan. If you look into this chapter 91 of Tehillim, Mehillah, before I continue, the meaning of Vihi Noam literally means we asking Hashem, God, I'm about to pray. I hope you like my prayer. God, I'm going to put on my talet and tefillin. I hope you like the mitzvah that I'm doing. That's the meaning of Vihi Noam Hashem Elokeinu Alenu. May the pleasantness of the Almighty be upon us, and our hands labor be blessed as well. This is usually connected to prayers or when it comes to do mitzvot. But going back to chapter 91, you have many pesukim. For example, Al tira, lo tira mipahad laila. Don't be afraid of the sudden fear of the night. Mihetz ya'uf yomam, or an arrow flying in the day. Ipol misidecha elef, 1,000 will fall from your left side, and 10,000 from the right side. Elecha lo yigash, but they will not touch you. Ki ata Hashem mahsi, God, you are my hiding place. Lo te'une lecha ra'a, no evil will fall upon you. Benega lo ikra behaolecha, and an illness will not come close to your dwelling place. Ki malachav yesavelach lishmorcha bechol derachecha, because God sends the malachim to protect us, etc. But if you go, and I only gave you just 2-3 verses to highlight the message of this chapter of Tehillim, that this chapter of Tehillim does not contain the letter Zayin from the Hebrew alphabet. You'll find Yod, Bet, Shin, Gimel, etc. The Zayin letter is not found. Why not? Because in Hebrew, Zayin means a weapon. A Jew does not need a weapon. Hashem protects us. Hashem sends the malachim to protect us. And that's the reason why it says in the Eliyahu Rabbah, in the Ben Ish Hai and others, and it says that a person that recites Vihi Noam and the chapter 91 of Tehillim Yosef Beseter 7 times, because 7 is Zayin also, Mo'ilo lishmira mikol keli mashchit, the person will be protected from any weapon of mass destruction. Unbelievable. You're in Miami, you're in Brooklyn, you're in Deal, and you're saying after the Hanukkah lighting 7 times, and now you bought yourself like a witness protection program. You bought yourself a 24/7 bodyguard that you don't have to meet payroll for him. Because God directly is sending the Shemirah for Am Israel. What a beautiful, beautiful Hidush of the great Eliyahu Rabbah and the Ben Ish Hai. And there are those that say in the name of the Ramban that is also appropriate in Hanukkah to recite the Lamnaseyah Binginot Mizmor Shir, the chapter of Tehillim that we recite every weekday before Baruch She'amar. That is chapter 67 of Tehillim. That also, that chapter is found, I don't have a Siddur next to me, but it's found in the Siddur in the shape of the menorah. The center pole is Mehu, happiness. The center pole, the backbone of the menorah, corresponds to the word Ismehu, the concept of happiness. So once again, we see menorah shape, the relationship with Hanukkah, the weekday prayers, and all the matters of protection. This is up to here. I'm just going to make a mark. So B'ezrat Hashem, tomorrow we know exactly where we are supposed to continue from. My dear Kahal Kadosh, the celebration of Hanukkah is not just 1 week in the year. The celebration of Hanukkah, humbly speaking, is, or the message of Hanukkah, is something that is close to us every day of our life. Because at the end of the day, besides not assimilation, which is the message of Hanukkah, but we also learn the concept of emunat hachamim, have faith in our sages, the way the Kedushat Levi writes in the optional prayer of Mosai Shabbat, Elokei Abraham, Elokei Yitzhak, Elokei Yaakov. And one of the things that he tells the person to pray for, Ahavat HaBoreh, loving Hashem, loving the Torah, Emunat Hachamim, Ahavat Haverim, all these are elements which are instrumental in the spiritual life of the person. But remember Hillel's reason in the Talmud on the celebration of Hanukkah, he says, Ma'alin Bakodesh. Like every night of Hanukkah, we increase one extra candle. The person must also find ways how we can increase our candle. What is our candle? Ner Hashem Nishmat Adam. The candle of the Almighty is the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kiner Mizvah Betorah Or. The candles are connected to the commandments, but the Torah is connected to the fire. That's the reason why you can have candles, but if you don't have the fire, there is no way that the candles will have its purpose. But when we combine the candles and the fire, now we have the mitzvah and we have the Torah. Yiratzon, that the celebration of Hanukkah brings a lot of happiness, healing, joy for all of Am Israel, and Yiratzon that the neshama of my uncle Shmuel ben Esther have an aliyah in Gan Eden. Amiyashen Hamavdil send refuah shelema to Ora Bat Ida among all of the Cholim of Am Israel. Have a great day, Kahal Kadosh. We'll see each other by Zet Hashem tomorrow morning via itorah.com at approximately 9:15. Have a lovely day, everyone.